Thanks for tuning in to the HR Uprising podcast. I'm your host, Lucinda. The HR Uprising is focused on helping forward-thinking people professionals deliver real lasting value in their organisations. I'm a chartered psychologist, speaker and trainer, and recently authored the best-selling business book, How to Be a Change Superhero. My day job is founder and CEO of software and training business Actus. This gives me the opportunity to work with other businesses like yours. We are focused on building a better workplace for people wherever they are located, with the help of our performance, learning and talent management software and our training and consultancy services. Every week on the podcast, I will be covering different topics and challenges, joined by relevant experts and real-life people professionals. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoy and get value from this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's HR Uprising podcast. And this week, I'm very excited to be joined by Carol Norbeck Hines. Now, I'm excited for lots of reasons because she is an expert trainer and consultant. She runs her know-how consultancy. We're going to talk a little bit about her new book that will be out in the summer called Joyful Leadership. But also, I had the pleasure of working directly with her for a number of years in leadership programs. I think about 10 odd years ago, Carol, wasn't it? And Carol's over in the States and we worked in Europe and in the UK. So I know firsthand that she's an absolute expert in this area. Carol, thank you so much for joining. It's lovely to catch up with you again. Would you like to introduce yourself from your point of view?
Well, thank you, Lucinda. And it really is a great relationship we've had these 10 plus years. We'll just put it that way. And again, I've always admired what you're doing with your company and with, what you do to help people be change agents and wonderful HR professionals. So as you said, Lucinda, I run a consultancy firm called Leader Know-How. And the goal of that firm is really to help good leaders become great leaders.
Absolutely. And we've both been HR or OD or learning and development professionals, people professionals in our own right. And we're very passionate about how important it is that we, I guess, role model leadership and also help others to be good leaders in an organisation, isn't it? So that's one of the things I know you're passionate about. Do you want to explain a little bit more?
Yeah. So, if we take a moment and think about what the real role is, right, of an HR person. Well, it sort of says it in our title, right? Human resources. Just like if we're an IT professional, what do we focus on, right? Information technology. So human resources is really about focusing on our people that work in the organization. I like to say we're really the keeper of all things people, right? We help keep that people aspect of the business running. Whether that be we're filling a vacant job, we support a performance review process, we do coaching, we do succession planning, all these things to really help the people component of the business run well. Well, then when I think about, what's leadership all about? I suspect, my favorite thought on this goes back to something I heard Stephen Covey say so many years ago. That if you are in a position where you have people under you, there's two core things your role involves. And he said you've got to manage the process and you've got to lead the people. Well, what's lead the people all about? Well, that's about the relationship. That's about getting the best out of your people. So that then makes me think about really the provocative question that I open my book with, which is, why would anyone follow you? And so as HR professionals, since we're the keeper of people, we've got to help the managers and the leaders that we're supporting really answer that question and be good at leadership so that people do want to follow you.
And that's the real tricky one, isn't it? Because you need people who are good followers, or you need to it's not something you can say follow me and make people do it. You can't coerce people into doing it in this day and age. You might have been able to do before. So
if we want to either get people to follow us, or help leaders develop that great leadership so that people choose and want to follow, what would you recommend?
Well, so let me ask you this question. If you think about a leader that you really admire, and think about someone that you actually know, right? That you have a relationship, not a public figure at this moment, but someone that you really know. What is it about them that makes you want to follow them? Either something about their character or tell me something about their behavior.
Well, I'd want those two to be congruent for starters. And I think it's about me buying into either their vision or their ethics, and the way they act, and I would want to subscribe to whatever it is that they're saying they are, the direction they're going in. So I guess they've got to communicate well and authentically, and I've got to believe that, and it's got to line up with my perceived values.
Terrific. And so that part, this line up with their perceived values, is really what I've discovered is one of the key components of great leadership and why people follow other people. And the first component is their character traits. What is it about them that really make them amazing, magnetic, as you said, sort of have a vision of what they connect to? And as I've studied this and taught this and worked with this, I find that there's 4 character traits that just keep coming up over and over again. And that is, great leaders are excellent at what they do. Great leaders are very trustworthy. They create what I call like a safe haven for me to be me, to bring my whole and best self. As you said earlier, they act with integrity, right? Their behavior and their values are aligned. And then the 4th one is that they're good stewards of all the resources that are put under them. And that's, again, just what I found over and over again. People want to follow people with these 4 character traits. Now, again, there's many other good character traits, but again, these are the ones that I just kept finding over and over again as being core.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no reason why as HR, they may not necessarily be, let's say, on an executive board, but all of those things we as HR professionals can absolutely model. I suppose there's a slight issue. I wonder whether sometimes the challenge is whether people value what we do enough for it, in terms of the leader, that side of things, whether or not some of the challenges is the organization buying into the valuing people. Maybe that's a cultural thing, maybe a bit philosophical actually, but I don't know, what would you think of that one?
Well, I think let's sort of start with this first piece about do they really value what we do? This is where I think the excellence character trait really comes in. I know I've worked in human resource organizations where what the HR professionals deliver to the managers is truly excellent, right? The performance management process makes sense. It's easy to use. They're supported, the managers are supported with great coaching on how to deliver difficult feedback. So when the HR department is excellent, right, then it's hard. I mean, it's almost impossible not to value them, because the service and the tools and the resources they provide me to help me lead my people are just, invaluable.
Yeah.
And if I pick another one, if they're not, I've unfortunately had this experience. When the HR department isn't trustworthy and doesn't really role model what that means. I mean, we as HR professionals handle a lot of really confidential, right? Delicate information. Let's talk about a harassment charge. I mean, if we break the trust of either the person that is bringing the issue forward or the person that's being accused, wow, what a nightmare. What a nightmare. So again, just 2 of those elements that's so critical that we've got to role model what this looks like so that leaders can follow our lead.
So, I mean, excellence in HR in many ways is being trustworthy, complete integrity, and dealing with some really challenging things, and just being the best, focusing on excellence is maybe that is the best way to lead. So, I mean, maybe worry too much about what others think or anything, but just truly looking at doing the best that we can possibly do and delivering the best service, setting up the best processes, doing everything to the absolute pinnacle of what we're able to do within our organizations and completely relevant. And so it's almost like excellence and trust are completely woven together in that circumstance, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then if you think of the other two, a key aspect of trust is being a person of integrity.
Yeah.
Right? That your walk and your talk fit together. And that weaves in there too. You break down trust or you're not excellent, it's going to definitely affect your whole character.
So I'm sure that the people listening, they are entirely trustworthy and they hopefully would never break trust. But we might be working, obviously we might, by accident or otherwise. So first of all, we don't want to break trust. But sometimes when you think about cultural issues in organizations, if we're an HR leader, we might want to try and address cultural issues. And quite often they would come down to a conflict between others. And that might well be down to something where trust has broken down. Have you got any thoughts on if we were supporting others or how we could actually, improve that? Because that can be massive for culture change and overall morale, can't it, in that sort of situation?
Absolutely. Yeah. A couple things about trust. First, I think we, as leaders, HR people, we do have to understand that trust is multifaceted. Right? There's a lot of things that build trust. Like Stephen Covey used to talk about that trust bank account, right?
Yeah.
That relational bank account. There's lots of aspects that help build it. And those same aspects will break it down. And so again, in my research and sort of my review, it seems like there are 6 really core aspects of, what trust is. That we're competent, there's that excellence again. That we're sincere. We don't have hidden agendas in HR. We speak the truth. Yes, sometimes we have to hold things confidentially, but that's not a sincerity issue, right? That's not a hidden agenda. So sincere, competent, reliable, do what we say we're going to do. Credible, make sure we talk in terms of facts and clearly state when we're talking about opinions. Empathy is another aspect of trust. Are we willing to put ourselves in the other person's shoes? That builds trust. And then again, I think our favorite word so far is integrity, right? We walk our talk. So as leaders, we've got to understand that there's different aspects of trust or different facets. And therefore, depending on my behavior, I've got to be clear about what aspect of trust I just broke, because I can't fix it if I don't sort of name it. And the reason I think this is important is, think of it this way. If I didn't deliver on what I said I would deliver on, then the breakdown's in me being reliable.
Yeah.
If I didn't deliver what I was supposed to because I don't know how to do it, well, then the breakdown is I'm not competent to do it. And so to fix those scenarios, even though they both resulted in a breakdown of trust, is a different fix, right? A different way that we reconcile with the other person. And I guess the last thing I'd say on this about, building trust, we want to do it daily. Think of things that we can keep making those deposits. But more importantly, we all have one of my favorite children's books is Alexander and the Horrible, Terrible, No Good Day, right? We all have days where we're just not at our best. And maybe we snap at somebody or we drop the ball on a project we have to do. Well, the most humble thing a great leader can do is apologize, right? Hey, here's what I did. I'm sorry. let's see if we can now work together to fix it, get the issue back on track. And that's the little know-how that I put in that chapter on trust, is really how to make a sincere, moving forward, trust-building apology.
So I can see that. I think it is that humility is, it actually really does break things down. In fact, it's really hard to be cross with somebody if they sincerely apologize for something, isn't it? Even however irritated you are, it kind of takes it away. What do you think about helping others to do that if they don't? Would you coach someone else to apologize for something? If you've got to be inclined, it's got to be sincere. And, you know, let's say it's not us, we're helping someone else in the organization. Are there any strategies for teaching others to do it?
That is where I think our role is so important, to role model and teach how this works. So if a leader comes to us and say, oh, you know, I've really got a mess with this associate and I'm not quite sure how to rebuild the trust between us, well, they had better see that we've been able to rebuild trust. Maybe they've seen that we have been apologetic, or when we haven't delivered what we're supposed to, they've seen how we mend that, how we fix that. So in some sense, they come to us because, gosh, that HR person knows how to do this. They did it with me. We have a strong relationship, and this stuff happens. So I can, again, trust them, trustworthy haven, to bring this mess up that I did as a leader, because I got to own it too, with my associate, and again, teach me how to repair it. And that's, again, where I think our ability to coach, you know, whatever framework we like. My favorite is the GROW model.
Yep.
In terms of a coaching, you know, conversation. But as we can teach managers how to coach, how to apologize within the coaching framework, how to, you know, bring out the best in their people. Again, we're going to be those role models that they can come to for the great coaching that they need. And really, that's the second part of my book. It's about great leaders serve others, right? It's not about me. It's about this service mentality. And again, I think that's what we can role model in HR, is let me show you how I serve you so you can serve your people.
Okay, so I think we should go on to the second half of the book. One of the things I was just reflecting on the model you were just sharing there, and I really like the fact that because you've got that trust there, you're giving models in your book about, you've got things like an apology deposit, I think you call it. And for me, it's those of us and then listeners will be familiar with like feedback models, but it's a bolstered feedback model, which is how you can apologize with integrity. And actually, not everyone can do that. Quite a lot of people would find that really useful. I think I would actually recommend people search out your book in the summer just for that process. I like that a lot. So your second part of the book, that's about leading others and the core behaviors of leadership, coaching excellence, providing feed forward, being the peacemaker, not just a peacekeeper, and something you call encounter listening. So if we were just to focus in on a couple of those, maybe give some highlights, because some of those I'm thinking like the peacemaker, not just a peacekeeper, that's a bit different, isn't it? Encounter listening, not sure what you mean by that. Just tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so again, this section of the book, just as you so beautifully said, is about leading others. Really, the first section is about leading yourself, right? Knowing about your values, what you care about, and again, creating those character traits that other people want to follow. So then in the second half, I switched to, again, more about the relationship. What is this about? And it's about service. And I like to use the coaching model here as a great framework for how to be of great service to your people. Not be answer manager, not solve all their problems, but really work with them so they grow and develop into people of great character and great leaders themselves. So a couple of the aspects of this, and that is, again, this is the relationship part. Let me touch on being a peacemaker versus just a peacekeeper. So conflict is inevitable, right? It happens all the time if we really think about it, because conflict is just when two people don't agree on something. Well, I don't know about your home life, but we're always not agreeing about things. And so, as leaders, we need to know how, when there's a conflict, how to bring it forward with respect and trust and integrity and resolve the conflict. That's making peace, not just keeping the peace. And so again, in the book, I talk about some tools for conflict resolution. And really my first tip is, let's get over this. Conflict is inevitable. It happens all the time. So let's not make it bigger than it needs to be. Just let's learn how to resolve it and make peace.
And use it positively sometimes as well, right?
Yeah.
It's just a difference. And by that sort of shared understanding, you can build a stronger team and, greater understanding and just uncover blind spots, I think, can't you?
Yeah. And I think that's something as HR professionals, again, we can coach our managers and leaders about is, okay, you're having a conflict with this person. Do you understand their point of view? Or are you pushing yours? Like, where are you in trying to, again, make the peace? And why are we pointing fingers and blaming? Let's understand and hopefully then through coaching, be able to get to a good resolution. And so I'll comment here too on my the last chapter in the book, sort of that wraps the whole thing up. In my career, I've often been asked, okay, Carol, if you could only teach leaders to do one thing, that's all you've got. It's time to do one thing. What would it be? And for me, it's learn to listen. Listen deeply, really understand their point of view, get to know the other person. Why do they think this way? Where are they coming from? What's their background about? What's going on at home that perhaps is making for a great day or a miserable day? But just that ability to listen first is, I think, the core skill to leadership.
And I mean, again, it's interesting. We both like Covey's work. I think of empathic listening. You've got this term encounter listening. What's that?
Well, so encounter listening, I'm trying to take it a little bit more, taking a little bit deeper than empathetic listening to really think about how do I know, K-N-O-W, right? How do I know this other person? How do I encounter their personhood, their being, who they are? So how through listening can I really be empathetic, but maybe go even just a little bit deeper and really walk in their shoes, understand their perspectives, and value that, appreciate that they don't think like I do. And that's terrific because we'll get more done because you're not just a mini me, right? You are another marvelous, wonderful contributor, and I need your point of view.
And that is harder than you think, isn't it? Because it means putting aside your own sort of judgments and views and know how to really get there in terms of that. So I can see why that is a skill that all of us could benefit from, not just in the workplace. Sometimes doing it at home is almost more important.
Absolutely.
So thank you. That's a really nice sort of some highlights of your book in terms of that. But I suppose I can't really finish without asking you why, of what we've talked about here. We've talked a lot about trust and certain skills of leadership and etc. But you call your book Joyful Leadership. Why is that?
Well, titling a book is a really difficult job, right? You want to try to get to what the essence is you're trying to communicate. So this word joy for me has really captured my attention for a long time. I just have loved the word for really all my life. And so it's made me think about, what is joy? How do you create it? Where does it come from? And so I'm not really sure I have the answer to that question. But what I do know is that all the roles in my life where I have felt joy, like being a mom, being a facilitator, being a caring friend, they have these characteristics of it's joyful because there is a deep commitment here in our relationship. And I'm willing to sacrifice for the other person. And so that's where the title came from, because, deep commitment to who I am and being the best person I can be, and this service mentality. So that's sort of the chapters or the organization of my book. And I thought, joyful is probably the right word for this style of leadership.
By the time this goes out, it'll probably be almost spring, let's hope. But I think we're recording just at the back end of grey January, just into February. And I think having a bit of joy is a good thing for everybody, isn't it, in terms of lightening things. But I think there's something there about authenticity and being in a job that you believe in and you care about and genuinely wanting to be excellent. And then taking joy from doing something well or really deeply caring about it and having a sense of purpose. So I think that's a good one to reflect on. It's easy for us not to see joy in things that maybe we should as well, in terms of satisfaction. So your book's coming out in the summer, and we'll share on social when that comes out, Carol. If people in the meantime want to reach out to you, to get in touch with you, how would they find you?
Well, a couple of ways. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. So just again, look for Carol Norbeck Hines. That's part why I use my middle name, because then it's easy to find me. On LinkedIn, I've got a little quick excerpt from the book, so you could read a little bit more there. And you're also welcome to email me directly. You just string that Carol Norbeck Hines all together and put an @me.com.
Well, that's easy.
I think those are the two easiest ways.
Absolutely right. Wonderful. Carol, it's been a joy to have you on the HR Uprising podcast. I wish you lots of success with your book when it comes out. And it's been just great to catch up. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Lucinda. It's been joyful for me as well. Thanks.
I really hope you found this week's episode useful and enjoyable. If you did, perhaps you could recommend us to a friend or colleague, or give us a review on your platform of choice. It really helps new listeners to find us. Now you can access links to any of the information mentioned in this show via the website www.hruprising.com. Further free resources are also available at www.actus.co.uk. There you can also find out more about our software and training solutions. Finally, why not join our LinkedIn group, the HR Uprising, to share ideas and collaborate with other like-minded people professionals. Thank you for listening to the HR Uprising podcast.